am Marielle Lee and I'm going to explain to you the political constitution of 1899. The political constitution of 1899, which was also known as Malolos Constitution, was the basic law of the First Philippine Republic. It was written by Felipe Calderon y Roca and Felipe Buencamino as an alternative to a pair of proposals to the Malolos Congress by Apolinario Mabini and Pedro Paterno. The Republic was inaugurated on January 23, 1899 at Barswain Church, Malolos, in ceremonies marked by the reading of the whole Constitution by Secretary Ocampo, proclamation of the Republic of the Philippines by Congress President Paterno, followed by the proclamation of Aguinaldo as the elected President of the new Republic, and speeches by Aguinaldo and Paterno. The said Constitution was promulgated on January 21, 1899 by President Emilio Aguinaldo. The Constitution placed limitations on unsupervised freedom of action by the chief executive, which would have hampered rapid decision-making. As it was created during the fight for Philippine independence from Spain, however, its Article 99 allowed unhampered executive freedom of action during wartime. Unsupervised executive governance continued throughout the Philippine-American War, which erupted soon after proclamation. The political constitution of 1899 was composed of 93 articles divided into 14 titles, with transitory provisions in 8 further articles, and with one unnumbered additional article. As a direct to colonial authorities of the Spanish Empire, the sovereignty was retroverted to the people, a legal principle underlying the Philippine Revolution. This principle was a precursor to the concept of popular sovereignty, currently expressed in most constitutional systems throughout the world, whereby the people delegate governmental functions to their civil servants while retaining the actual sovereignty. The 27 articles of Title IV detail the natural rights and popular sovereignty of Filipinos, the enumeration of which does not imply the prohibition of any other rights not expressly stated. Title III, Article 5 also declares that the state recognizes the freedom and equality of all religion, as well as the separation of church and the state. These are direct reactions to features the Spanish government in the Philippines, where the friars were dominant agents of the state. The Spanish converted most of the population to Catholicism, and the religion remains the dominant one in the country. In the Spanish-American War of 1898, the revolutionaries sided with the Americans, hoping that, with the defeat of Spain, independence would be granted by the U.S. to the Philippines. This, however, did not happen. After Spain ceded the islands to the United States in the Treaty of Paris, the U.S. immediately proceeded to brutally suppress the Philippine independence movement. The American and Spanish government reckoned the Treaty of Paris as an instrument of peace, but the Filipinos resented its conclusion and ratification, for they were not consulted and considered in its making. Further, the provisions of the treaty were not for the benefit of the Filipinos, but for the imperialists instead. With the signing and ratification of the Treaty of Paris, the bitter relations between the Americans and Filipinos turned bitterer and eventually led to another episode that was known as the Filipino-American War. On December 10, the Treaty of Paris officially ended the Spanish-American War. The once proud Spanish Empire was virtually dissolved as the United States took over much of Spain's overseas holdings. Puerto Rico and Guam were ceded to the United States. The Philippines were bought for $20 million, and Cuba became a U.S. protectorate. Philippine insurgents who fought against Spanish rule during the war immediately turned their guns against the new occupiers. And 10 times more U.S. troops died suppressing the Philippines than in defeating Spain. The Malolos Constitution is the first important Filipino document ever produced by the people's representatives. It is anchored in democratic traditions that ultimately had their roots in American soil. According to Title III, Article 4, the form of government was to be popular, representative, alternative, and responsible, and shall exercise three distinct powers, namely, the legislative, the executive, and the judicial. The Constitution specifically provided for safeguards against abuses and enumerated the national and individual rights not only of the Filipinos and of the aliens. The legislative branch is also known as the law-making body of the First Republic since they are authorized to make laws, alter and repeal them through the power vested in the Philippine Congress. Several reasons prompted the creation and convening of the Malolos Congress. Primarily, it was established to attract the country's elite, the intellectuals and the wealthy, to join the revolution. Secondly, the creation of a representative government was given primarily to make good impression on foreign powers. A popular assembly was deemed necessary in order to enhance the image of the new republic. So what are the powers of the legislative branch? First is to watch over the interests of the Philippine people. Second, to carry out the revolutionary laws and discuss the vote upon said laws. Third, to discuss and approve treaties and loans. And lastly, to examine and approve the accounts presented annually by the Secretary of Finance, as well as extraordinary and other taxes which may be hereafter imposed. Secretaries of the government were given seats in the Assembly, which meets annually for a period of at least 3 months. Bills could be introduced either by the President or by a member of Assembly. A permanent commission of 7, elected by the Assembly, and granted specific powers by the Constitution, was to sit during the intervals between sessions of the Assembly. The executive power was vested in the President and elected by a Constituent Assembly of the Assembly of Representatives and Special Representatives. The President will serve a term for 4 years without re-election. There was no Vice President, and in case of vacancy, a President was to be elected by the Constituent Assembly. For the judicial power, it interprets the meaning of laws, applies laws to individual cases, and decides if laws violate the Constitution. Judicial power includes the duty of the courts of justice to settle actual controversies involving rights which are legally demandable and enforceable, and to determine whether or not there has been a grave abuse of discretion amounting to lack or excess of jurisdiction on the part of any branch or instrumentally of the government. Bye. Bye-bye.